On now to the Bluest Eye.
Okay, so we have two statements of concern that were filed on this book. And I guess what would be the best thing to do to run through the statement of concern on both of them, talk about the resume and the recommendation of the committee, and then public comment.
I think that would be all right.
All right, so we received two statements of concern. One was filed by Connie Phillips on November 19th, representing the St. Tammany Parish Library Accountability Project, on the Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. What brought this title to your attention? Content violates the state obscenity statutes, 2021 Louisiana laws, revised statute. Did you review the entire item? If not, what sections did you review? They said yes. What course of action do you recommend in regard to this resource? Restrict access to minors as outlined in the statute. Require parent to check out for a minor. The book should be shelved in a section where minors do not have access. A separate place in the library. A room or some section where minors do not have entry without parent and minors cannot check out. Please state your reasons for making this recommendation. To what in the resource do you object? Be specific. This book contains profanity and derogatory terms, sexual activities, including sexual assault and molestation, alcohol use, inflammatory racial and religious commentary and references. And they cite page numbers and all of the different quotes. In its place, what materials would you recommend on this topic? Something that does not violate the state obscenity statutes for minors. And then on November 30th, Fran Smith submitted a statement of concern representing herself. What brought this title to your attention? I have heard about this book a long time ago. Did you review the entire item? If not, what sections did you review? I read enough, pages 18, 83, and 85. What course of action do you recommend in regard to this resource? Take it out of the libraries. Please state your reason for making this recommendation. To what in the resource do you object? Please be specific. It's sick. Children do not have to be exposed to this piece of garbage. What good does it do to them to read about such things? You people are foul, and I wonder what your mother would have said if you'd brought this book home to read. In its place, what materials would you recommend on this topic? Your judgment, or whoever you choose to read these books, is crude and vile, and I wouldn't trust any of you with my child's welfare. I am very concerned, now more than ever, since I have had to degrade myself reading bits and pieces of these books that you have permitted our children to read. So the Bluest Eye, in reviewing it, we noted that the author is a Pulitzer Prize, Nobel Prize, and Presidential Medal of Freedom winner, and this book is part of the canon of American literature. While this book is not appropriate for young children, many high schools include it on their reading list, and it's taught in many colleges and universities. The sexual material in the book, we noted, was not erotic, but informs us about the characters and their development, and it illustrates complex emotions. It's realistic for its setting. It has a pretty high circulation rate at STPL with 336 circulations since 2004. It's offered as a book club selection, and it's held in adult fiction and in over 6,000 other public libraries across the country. It's currently located in adult fiction. The board could choose to put it back out in adult fiction. They could continue to restrict it behind the circulation desk, or they could remove it from the library. But the committee's recommendation was that the book should remain in the collection and is appropriate in its current location in adult fiction.
Is Ms. Fran Smith here with us to comment for 5 minutes?
First of all, I'd like to say that I think it was very rude to call Connie a coward. She is not a coward. She has personal things to attend to, sometimes just like all of us. And you are wrong, Mr. Airy, Councilman Airy, for attacking her like that and saying that. Now I'll get on down to the business that I'm here for. This book, I also had read some things from the Common Sense media. This book is for adults only. It is available in public libraries for those wishing to read it. It is inappropriate for anybody under the 18 without parental permission. There is scenes of rape, child abuse, sex with minors, and other subjects which only matured adults can handle. This was written by a 13-year-old person. So don't give me any of that stuff. It also has more about children reading this book. And I know for a fact, someone I know read this book, and they were not an adult. This book has been on the Common Core list for reading, suggested for like 12 years old and up, okay? I don't find it good to a child to read about this. And I chose this book myself. Do you know why? Because I can relate to this person. That's why. This book would not help me whatsoever. So I'm going to read from this book. And if you have any kids in the audience, I suggest them leave. Because I know I saw kids here in this audience. The richness of her shocked body, the silence of her stunned throat was then Pauline's, better than Pauline's easy laughter had been. The confused mixture of his memories of Pauline and doing a wild and forbidden thing excited him, and a bolt of desire ran through his genitals, giving it length and softening the lips of his anus. Surrounding all the lust was the border of politeness. He is raping his 11-year-old daughter, viciously raping her. He wanted to fuck her tenderly, but the tenderness would not hold. The tightness of her vagina was more than he could bear. His soul seemed to slip down to his guts and fly into her. And the gigantic thrust with an 11-year-old, can you imagine a grown man raping his daughter to begin with, and she's 11 years old? Can you only imagine how bad that must have hurt her? Even though this girl is fictional, I know these things happen, okay? Like the rapid loss of air from a, hollow suck of air in the back of her throat, like the rapid loss of air from a circus balloon. Following the disintegration, the falling away of sexual desire. He was conscious of her wet, soapy hands. She was doing the dishes while he did this. The fingers clenching, but whether her grip was for a hopeless but stubborn struggle to be free or from emotion, he could not tell. Removing himself from her was so painful. He cut it short and snatched his genitals out of the dry harbor of her vagina. Her father did this to her. Yes, it was fictional, okay? Fictional, but it does happen. Do you want your 12-year-old to read this? Do you want your 15-year-old to read this? What good is it for them to read this? If you're an adult, read all the porn you want. Go for it. Okay? Put this book up where they can't get it. And you know what else? My mother used to drop me off at the library, and I would go read books. I don't think she would ever want me to read this. Who's to say these kids don't go read this in the adult section? Evidently, they do. Evidently, it's been assigned as a book for them to make a report on. No, this book needs to be set up where children cannot get it. Thank you.
I cannot start my time until I get to where I'm going to read in the book. I'd appreciate that much greatly. Get me settled here. Is this working? Are we still streaming? Just a question before you start the clock.
Yes.
Okay, good. Good. Okay, I'm going to read from a New York Times best-selling book, Ishtar's Storybook Hour. And if little children were not already sufficiently confused as to their sexual identities, they could now be brought to the public library, where a man wearing lipstick, false eyelashes, mascara, high heels, a wig, and a dress formed to simulate a woman's anatomy would read to them their favorite children's storybooks. They had once ministered as priests in the temples of Ishtar. Now they ministered to children in public libraries. In an ancient Hittite prayer, Ishtar is described as possessing the power to make young women dress as men on their right side, to make young men dress as women on the left side. So the spirit of Ishtar now again made young women dress as men and young men dress as women, and both dress as both and as neither. We are not censoring anyone. There are those who have tried to make this a civil rights issue. This is only about protecting the innocence of all of our children. These first books that were challenged, these 4 books, you know who that you didn't even bring my name. You knew I was here. Julian is a mermaid, and you knew that, every single one of you. This is entirely too confusing for small children, teens, and even adults. I read every single one of those books, page by page. It is not the role of anyone except the parents or the grandparents to decide when it is best to expose their children to sexuality. Shouldn't public officials, librarians, follow the same rule as doctors to first do no harm? Why are you allowing this to harm our children and potentially threaten support from the community to renew the tax millage that's coming up next year for the library? Silence in the face of evil is evil itself. And y'all have all been silent, and so has our parish council. This whole agenda is Marxism. You know it because Emily Drabinski gives you your marching orders, and you know that. We know all about all the marching orders you get from her, and she's a proud, self-proclaimed Marxist. You all will eventually be gone. Because this community, it looked like the majority was here tonight of the other people that love all this pornography and pedophilia, but they're not the majority. We're not going away, and each and every one of you will be fired and removed, and it's going to happen. Mark my words. You don't do this to children. It's evil.
10 o'clock. Y'all never thought this was going to happen when you got on this board. This is ridiculous. I'm so sorry you're having to deal with this. I was at home cooking dinner watching this, and I was like, we got to go up there. This is outrageous. And I looked at the books, and I saw The Bluest Eye, and I remember reading that in college. I loved it. I said, you got to be kidding me. What are we worried about? And it reminded me of a joke I tell, and that's that St. Tammany is the patron saint of terrified white people. And that's what we're dealing with. We're not talking about protecting children. We're talking about bigots who want to move us back. And you have the power. They think you're a soft target. They think libraries are a soft target, but they're not. You have the backbone to protect our society, and that's what books do. And I appreciate you sitting here and putting up with this nonsense. It's outrageous. So I'd like to tell you a quick story. I'm all worked up. My parents left New Orleans in the late 60s because my dad thought the city was getting too crazy. He has no idea what's going on now. We were on our way to Arkansas, and our Volkswagen broke down in Tallulah, where my dad grew up. Now, my dad and my mom were hippies, and we were hippies. And when we went to school, and I had my lunch tray, you know who said, come sit down with us? The black kids did. Not those redneck white kids. They made my life miserable. So it helped me understand a few things that we're dealing with today. In high school, my friend Cyrus and I, Cyrus is black, we were going to see Pee-wee's Big Adventure in Vicksburg, a silly movie. And we went to go pick up our gigantic friend Clarence. Clarence is a massive defensive tackle, huge guy, he happened to be black too. And we stopped to pick him up. And Clarence came out to the car and he leaned in the window and he said, Jamie, my grandma said I can't go across that river with white people. And we laughed and go, okay, Clarence, whatever. I understand it today. I understand what she was worried about. She was worried about her grandson getting lynched. And now we've got people, some of them, I guess, had a cross burning, they had to leave. But we got people who want to move us back to the 1950s, and you have the ability to say no. You have the ability to say, these books deserve to be here. We're not going to create separate sections of the library, or are we going to go back to separate water fountains? We're not going to do this. And I'll come here I got notes. I'll come here to every meeting now if we have to, but they think you're a soft target. These are fascists who want to move into our society and who want to change things, and they think you're soft, but we know that you're not. You're strong enough to make decisions to say no Nazis, no fascists, no bigots. You may not change what our children learn. You're not allowed to do that. Our libraries are a bastion of information. They're important. This isn't a silly board. This is incredibly important. They think you're soft. We know you're not.
Hi, I'm Darby. I'm from Mandeville. I had prepared statements, but to be honest, the discourse surrounding the Bluest Eye really threw me off a little bit, so I kind of want to go in a different direction. It's alarming to me that anyone in our community, or really anywhere, would argue against that book being available in general in a library in the same way that it would be available in general in a bookstore, in a Barnes & Noble or a little bookstore. It is up to the parents to make sure that their children are accessing age-appropriate material and not checking that out if they don't think their children are ready for that. But the person who came up here and read from the book and said that it shouldn't be able to even be accessed at all by someone under the age of 18 because of the sexual content, because of the content of rape and molestation, is entirely detrimental, because those things unfortunately do happen to people under 18. They happened to me under 18, and I was alone. I didn't have people that I knew were educated on the subject or even aware of the subject, so I kept it to myself, and it almost caused my family to lose a daughter, my siblings to lose a sister. Having books like that available for when it is appropriate, deemed appropriate by parents, deemed appropriate by guardians, for their children to read, protects children that have been through the unimaginable, honestly. It makes us feel not alone. It makes sure that we have friends and people to lift us up so that we can come in and say these things to you today. And that idea can be carried throughout the rest of the books that were talked about today too, because I'm not only a victim of rape, but I'm also queer, I'm disabled, I've been discriminated against in many, many ways because of things that are completely outside of my control. If I had had access to books like that growing up, it wouldn't have only helped me accept myself, it would have helped my peers be kinder to me, make it easier for me to access the help that I needed to grow into a person I'm proud to be now. So I hope that that's something you'll keep in mind throughout the rest of the books that are going to be looked at. If there are more books like The Bluest Eye that have themes, it's in the adult section, but should be left up to parent, or books about young queer people, they need to be able to be accessed not only by the queer people to feel safe, but by their friends so that their friends can help create a safe space for them to grow into the people that they should be, to make the world a better place. Thank you.
Once again. So I have a prepared statement, but first I want to address Mr. Erie on the board. Sir, you had mentioned that one of the previous board meetings that we're not talking about Shakespeare here when we're talking about this pornography. The Bluest Eye is Shakespeare, modern day Shakespeare. You can compare it. I'm sorry? Okay. No, okay. No, I appreciate that. I would like my time back also. I appreciate that, and I'm glad you're going to keep it where it is, because I'd like to finish. It is on the same level as William Faulkner, As I Lay Dying. The only difference is the main character is a young colored woman. So I appreciate that. Mr. Erie, you seem quite annoyed that a lot of the board members are not agreeing with you. I have to ask you that if you sat on a board, maybe the board of the American Medical Association, would you continue to disagree with the experts? Because at this point, I'm pretty sure you have no training in library science. No offense to you, but you have no training, and they continue to give you solid evidence and recommendations on where these books belong, appropriate placement for these books, and you continue to disagree. Sir, please listen and pay attention. I'd also like to inform you that not allowing these books to be shelved appropriately because you simply disagree with it willy-nilly and you have some sort of opinion, no one really cares about that. Your opinion is not the law, okay? So please stop with the attitude and disregarding all of the information that Kelly is reading. This book in particular, even though you already made up your mind and don't want to listen, I'm going to talk about it anyway. This book was featured on the Today Show recently. They celebrated just a few years ago the 50th anniversary of this book. It was an Oprah Book Club book. It was also a Jenna Bush Book Club book. Jenna Bush. So this isn't just a right or a left thing. This is an American thing. This is a First Amendment thing. I wish people would get up and fight for their First Amendment rights the way they fight for their Second Amendment rights. I'm not going to read my statement. I'm giving my time, my 19 seconds back. Thank you. And Mr. Erie, please adjust your attitude.
Thank you once again as I stand and speak. Who'd have ever thought we'd be discussing this on a parish level? Allowing children access to reading books that obviously damages them. Some food for thought. We're getting ready to have an election, a new governor. There's a certain governor that already has a campaign against what we're discussing. And some things to think about in the future. There's two laws that are getting ready to be discussed in the state legislature next month. HB 25 and Senate Bill number 7, which basically gives parish government the authority to enforce authority over the library control boards through the whole state. If that bill passes in the state, chances are that if a certain man wins governorship, he's going to go on a campaign to make sure that the law is enforced against allowing sexually explicit material to be presented with kids, to kids. So will we be mandated by the state? Or will you take proper leadership and do the right thing? What's going to happen? Do we need to review another 152 books? Come on. Think about this, because it's going to happen. Somebody's going to win that governorship. And bills might be passed real soon in Baton Rouge. One way or another, this isn't going away. HB 25 and Senate Bill number 7, they're probably going to pass because there's a lot of people in our state that want to make sure that the parish government oversees what's taking place in our libraries. One way or another, we want to see our kids protected. And we want to trust our leadership in our libraries in St. Tammany. Please do the right thing. Please do the right thing.
Testing. All right. Marlon Peters in Slidell, Louisiana. Look, guys, I've been coming to the library for years. I've never ran across a book that I found offensive, but if I did, I wouldn't threaten you guys' job behind it. I wouldn't go get groups and go run behind politicians to threaten you. I really don't like that. I wouldn't try to shoehorn my way into your processes and shoehorn my way into your job. That's fascism. Fascism is really coming to America. And they stand up and act like that's really something that they feel they have the right to do. It's fascism. There's no other way to explain it. As far as raising children and protecting them, I'm a parent. I talk to my kids. I don't mean this offensive. I don't need your help raising my children. Some people feel they need your help raising their children. I don't need your help raising my children. I'm just saying, I don't need your help. How would I feel as a parent tripping over myself, running behind you, saying, oh, well, you're not doing a good enough job doing my job? That's basically what you're saying when you do stuff like that. You're saying, I'm not doing a good enough job and you should be doing it for me. That's basically what they're saying. And you're not doing a good enough job doing my job. That's the whole foundation. There's no way around it. You guys keep doing what you're doing. Keep all the books out that you can. If I don't want my daughter to see a book, I'm gonna tell my daughter not to see it. I'm not gonna go run to Landry. What do I need to run to a politician for? I can't talk to my daughter? Seriously, no, I'm not even trying to be funny. I can't talk to my daughter. Can I talk to her or not? I don't need somebody else to talk to. I don't need anybody else to do my job as a parent. That's my job, supposedly. Maybe it's not my job. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep as many books as you can on those shelves. You guys have support. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Larry DeQuay. I live in Slidell. And I had a prepared speech, but I'm going to alter it a little bit based on some of the other statements. Context is everything, okay? When you pick and choose selected passages out of books, you don't get the full context of what the book is trying to say. And let me give you an example. I could go to the Holy Bible, and I could go to Genesis, where they talk about Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah. And Lot offered his 2 daughters to the men standing outside his house because Lot wanted to protect the 2 other angels that were in his house. And I could just go to the section of the Bible and read that part of the Bible and say, oh, wow, the Bible's okay with a father offering his 2 daughters in exchange to save other lives. Or I could go to another part of Genesis where Lot's 2 daughters both get him drunk. They get Lot drunk and they have sex with Lot. And they both have children from Lot. And I could just, if I was using the same cherry picking going on, I could say, I should put the Holy Bible on this banned book list because it's saying it's okay for daughters to get their father drunk and have sex with him. So context is everything. And at this point, I'd like to go ahead and quickly read, I don't know if you saw the news lately, but a lady named Grace Lynn, who was 100 years old, spoke in Florida about banning books. Okay? She said, the freedom to read, which is protected by the First Amendment, is our essential right and duty of our democracy. Even so, it is continually under attack by both public and private groups who think they hold the truth. Banned books and burning books are the same. Both are done for the same reason, fear of knowledge. Fear is not freedom. Fear is not liberty. Fear is control. My husband died as a father of freedom. I am a mother of liberty. Banned books need to be proudly displayed and protected from school boards like this. And Grace created a quilt. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shauna Snyder. I live in Slidell, but I am going to read what Mr. David Kugel was going to speak. Chairman Airy, I came here tonight because although Livingston Parish Council has provided their residents 4 chances to speak and passed 2 resolutions, our council refuses to give us a single opportunity to speak to them. Last month, the board passed a resolution which affected around 5 books. You knew it wouldn't address the sexual explicit and pedophilic materials targeted at the available to minors, but you didn't care. You could have passed a resolution similar to Lafayette, which prohibited these materials from being in the minors' collection, or implemented the Attorney General's guidance. You didn't do that. Instead, you passed a politically expedite, toothless resolution that served no purpose other than to relieve the pressure surrounding the circus that is in our library system. And you did so because this board has repeatedly demonstrated through its hostility towards this community that it would never agree to any substantive protections for the children. We know that all of this is really about you controlling what we read. On an opposition Zoom call in February with numerous librarians in attendance, one parish library director admitted banning the purchase of multiple books, including a NYT bestseller, because she didn't agree with its views on the COVID vaccine. Not a single participant voiced any problem with this library director banning books. And we know this practice is widespread. It is not your job to act as surrogates of the American Library Association and dictate standards and values to this community. It is your job to respect the standards and values that this community chooses. The silence of our elected officials have created a vacuum which your supporters have exploited. This has led them violently threatening and harassing concerned residents in an attempt to silence them. They've also tried to shut down any social media exposing the materials present in our libraries. Facebook keeps saying these materials violate their standards, yet Miss LaRocca has defended them for the children. Just last week, the main pro-library group began a Facebook ad campaign enticing hatred against Christians by mocking Jesus as a drag queen. The same group has told the media that you are their board and their librarians. They know where you stand on all of this, as do we.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Alston, and I'm from Covington. Another great American author, Mark Twain, said, if you travel, it's impossible to be a bigot. This book allows me as a white person to travel into the world of an African American family and understand what it's like. Therefore, it should remain. Thank you.
There's a reason why books contain graphic depictions of rape, of real life events that happen to people. It's so that we can understand as human beings. I went today to the library to find this book and where this book was shelved, and I saw that it was shelved in the adult section, far, almost as far in the library away from the children's section as physically possible within that building. We as a society have already decided that we are not parenting for other parents. A 2-year-old, any parent of a 2-year-old knows that you don't take a 2-year-old to a grocery store and don't hold their hand or restrict them. You know why? Because there are big, heavy displays that they are capable of pulling over on themselves. So we have decided that parents are responsible for taking care of their children. We have not enacted laws to bubble wrap the aisles or to set up things in the grocery stores where everyone must line up and ask for items behind glass in order to save the children. Parents are responsible for their children. This group, this library system, has created a brilliant system trying to help the parents parent their children. They have created a tiered library card system so that the parents who really do not want their child reading about the lived experience of another child who has been raped don't have to, because there is a card for that. If they want to wait until they're 15 to give them the ability to do that, there's a card for that. If they want to wait until they're 18 years old to make their own, and they would have to be over 18 to make their own decision, there's a card for that. We have done everything in this parish to respect the rights of the families, to protect their children from material that is not appropriate for them in that parent's viewpoint. I personally am okay with my 15-year-old understanding about their friend, by the way, who had been raped, and how they might feel and how it affected their life. And it's not about taking that one passage and talking about sex. It's about the entire book as a whole and how that affected their lives, how it affected the lives of other people in their family. This is how we learn about each other. And this is why these books need to stay. Thank you very much for your time.
Robin Schulberg. There is no further public comment.
All right, time for board discussion. I read the book. It's from a different time when things were different, but it gives us a good lesson now. I think it needs to stay in adult fiction where it is.
Just to address the other comment, two of the first books that we looked at seemed to me to be like the I Am Jazz book, and one of the options was to put that with that book. So that's the reason why I voted no on those. And I think that's perfectly acceptable, being that's one of my options, so that the librarians gave me to advocate for. So, I mean, I've been a lawyer for 20 years. This is a statute that we're supposed to be analyzing, so I think I'm perfectly capable and competent to be on this board. And frankly, the board shouldn't be a bunch of librarians, because otherwise, why would you have a board then at that point? You should have people with different viewpoints on things. Since we're talking about censorship, apparently that's bad. At least that's what I've been hearing tonight, and I would agree with that. But as far as the Bluest Eye, I mean, once again, obviously it's not obscenity. Yes, there's some uncomfortable passages in it and things that are hard to read. But I can rest assured, and Kelly, you can confirm this for me, nobody is standing in the middle of the library reading this out loud for everybody to pass by as a part of a performance of the library, correct?
No.
Okay. So what we heard, that's not going to be happening. This is something that you're going to read, and I understand the whole, it's not in some walled-off section of the library, but once again, it is in the adult section. It is appropriately cataloged. Frankly, I mean, it's in high school libraries, which obviously isn't adult-only, so, and it's been around forever. I don't understand why we're here for this book. Certainly, there's some books we could debate, but I mean, on any number of grounds, this book, I mean, it's by a Nobel Prize-winning author. I think she won the Pulitzer Prize, too, for some other work. I don't know. So I would, if I can move, unless anybody else wants to speak, or I guess you can still speak after I move to keep it wherever it is, reject the appeal, whatever language that needs to be.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Airy, seconded by Ms. Shaw, that the book remain where it is currently shelved in adult fiction. All in favor? Voice, let's do a...
Jake Airy.
Yes.
Ann Shaw.
Yes.
Rebecca Taylor.
Yes.
Carmen Butler.
Yes.
Motion carries.